then Talking Heads will be back. And we'll be back about 1 o'clock, I think.
Where's that music coming from? Hold on. Oops. I did it again. Welcome to Burns Notice. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd. So glad to have everyone here. Just getting some settings right, just getting ready, as we go. Hopefully everyone's having a good one. I'm having a solid one. I know last week I was having a sort of like light mental collapse on the show, but I think that's fine. I think I'm allowed to do that sometimes. Let's see. The keyboard line is buzzing today. I'm not sure why that is. I think that's buzzing less. I know I need to get an in-ear monitor thing. I'm excited to be here today with all of you. Let me just do one thing because I don't like how that sounds, and then we'll get it. Then we'll get it going. But I'm genuinely excited to be here today. You guys. There's a bunch of cool humans. We're all here together. We're together. So now that we're here, a lot of stuff we could talk about today. I'm still getting this like setup kind of locked in. I like being on a couch during streams because I think it makes it feel a little bit more cash, like we're hanging out. Although I don't have my camera position exactly where I like it yet. Let me see what happens if I do a little bit of this. Nope, I think I did the opposite of what I wanted to do. What if I do a little bit of that? Nope. I'm gonna put it over here. Nope. Oh God. You're like, is there an earthquake? Why can't this guy do anything? Shout out to anyone who came to the film. I made it worse. What if I just move over here? Okay, maybe that makes it better. Shout out to anyone who came to the film. I hope everyone can hear me okay. On Saturday, I know I saw Dirk in the chat. I got to meet Dirk in person. It was so much fun. It was fun to show you guys what I've been working on. Wait, someone said no sound at all? You guys can't hear me? You guys can't hear me right now? People are here. I feel like other people are talking. Is it loud enough now? You guys let me know. I'll keep turning it up. Mary, I might watch a bit of your video in a little bit. I might watch a bit of your video on stream in a little bit. Please don't copyright strike me. If you guys still don't follow Mary Houlihan on this website, I don't like you. Ooh, Mary saw. That means you were at some political event. Because Mason's always at political events. Okay, we have sound. Everything's okay? Everything's okay. You can hear me okay? Great. So now that we're all here and we can hear each other okay, let's talk. Let's chat. It's time for us to just really cut the bullshit and talk about what's going on in this world once and for all. Okay, so it was an election day in America yesterday. Some of you know this, some of you don't. Oh, the movie thing. This is what I should bring up. Okay. So someone says they still can't hear. I don't know, guys. I don't know. What the fuck does everyone want from me? I shouldn't have to know how to do things. So this is a response to both Sean and Elliot. Okay, so I premiered the movie Saturday at the Eastwood Performing Arts Center in Los Angeles. Genuinely shout out to that place. If you're in LA or Southern California and you ever want to like hold an event or do a screening or something like that, they did a very good job. So I would highly recommend booking events there. We showed the movie. My buddy Skylar Higley did some warm up comedy, which was awesome. And yeah, I was nervous because like you work on something in a really insular way and you don't know how it's going to play in front of humans. I was tempted at one point to not watch it and just hide in the other room or go up into the booth. But then I was like, no, let's do this. Let's sit there and crack a Modelo and watch this with my friends. It was a fun experience for me, and you know the difference between I will get you some speakers, but the difference between like you make a thing on the internet and maybe 250,000 people see it, that's cool. But what does that mean? What does that really mean? Whereas doing something like this, having 75 people in a room or something feels kind of awesome. Felt pretty cool. I will be curing deafness. Yeah, I'm glad that Void Galax liked it as well. If you were there, by the way, feel free to letterbox it. The homie True Siegel, I think, set up the letterbox, and we're setting up some more information for it soon. But so that was the premiere. I will say, for those who saw the premiere, I'm gonna change a couple small things. So you will now be the only people to ever see that version of the thing. Small things, guys. I'm going to change a couple, shout out to Blink 182. Small things. But I'm going to change a couple of small things before it officially comes out. But here's wait, I really like this comment, so I have to point it out. Man discovers live theater versus cinema from first principles. I'm all about first principles, dog. So here's the kind of plan going on now. Okay, I'm gonna do a digital premiere event for you guys and people that want to see it and see it with people. I think watching it around others was like a really cool experience, and so I'm looking at how to do that in a way that makes the most sense. I think here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do a thing where there's like an online ticketing system. Patrons, if you're here, you will not have to pay. Don't worry, this will be free for patrons. There'll be an online ticketing system, and what will happen is I'll then shoot an email out that has a link to like a private stream link, and then I will intro the movie. I'll show the movie, and we'll do a Q&A. So I think that's how we're going to do it. And I want to try to do it a couple of times just for time zone stuff. So I'll probably do one of those premiere digital screenings at like noon, like this time right now. And I'll probably do another one in the evening as well. So that's going to happen. Once it officially is released, which will be soon, the first place it'll exist is Means TV. If you are not a member of Means TV, thank you so much, Dirk. That really means a lot. If you're not on Means TV, I get it. We all pay so much for so much shit. I do have codes. For patrons, I have a code where you get like 50% off for the year. For non-patrons, I have a code where you get like 20% off a month or something like that. So I'll spread that information far and wide. If you, oh God, this is so convoluted. If you want to see it and you don't want to join the Patreon, and okay, Mick, I'll do that for you. If you want to see the movie, you don't want to join Means TV, it will be available for all patrons on the Patreon. It will also, I think, and I need to check on the legality of this with Mean stuff. I think it will be potentially available to buy or rent digitally for those who are like, you know what, Michael, I fuck with you. I want to see this thing, but I'm not trying to like, sign up for another Patreon. You might not want to do that. And you might be like, I don't want to support Means TV. Isn't that communist propaganda? Isn't that propaganda? So if that's not what you're into, you can just get it directly. I'm working on getting screenings sorted in. Here's the current plan. I'm trying to see if I can screen it in Chicago and New York this summer. I'm trying to find theaters that are about like 50 seats because I'm not confident in my ability to get more people in the room beyond that right now. So if you are in Chicago or New York and you have thoughts on where I could show it, please do let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. Patreon is, Yeet said this thing in the chat. I kind of do. I'm so scared about platforms, but Patreon is the one I'm least scared about. I'm like, I would say I'm legitimately at this point in my life scared that one day YouTube's, I don't know, like Stephen Miller is going to be a part of digital media for the government. And then that means that like anyone who uses terms like communism or socialism are going to get in trouble. So there you go. You're milking every dollar out of that dollar. Don't worry, I'll be more tasteful. This is I got this pedal and it's the first time I'm using it, so I'm gonna try to be. I would do Rochester. I'm gonna try to be tasteful about it. I did after last week also look into. I think I'm gonna get a sampler thing that I can play with as well. But I promise to always be tasteful about it and not go too far. A couple other things, and we'll get in it. We love Chicago. A couple other things. One, doing a very cool event on June 27th. Maybe I can add the poster to the screen. On June 27th, here in Los Angeles, California. I let everyone on Patreon know because you guys get to know stuff first. But doing an event called Art in the Age of the Algorithm. It's June 27th, 7 p.m. Hollywood Distillery at Santa Monica Boulevard here in California. Listen to this lineup. Listen, seriously, and if you're like a YouTube person, you're going to blow your wad. Hosted by Sam from We're in Hell and me, Michael Burns. Listen to the speakers and participants of this event. Open Mike Eagle, one of my favorite rap artists ever, and someone who makes things. Duncan Clark, JJ McCullough, Alexander Avia, J-Reg, Art Chad, and then two of my favorite comedians in the world, Skylar Higley and Mary Houlihan. Whoa. Open Mike Eagle, Duncan Clark, JJ McCullough, Alexander Avia, J-Reg, Art Chad, Skylar Higley, Mary Houlihan. Wait, is there more? Yeah, there's more. Music from Aaron Gilbert Steele and friends, one of the greatest experimental drummers on the planet Earth right now, hanging out with some other people. So I'm going to promote that a little more. There's going to be a lot of cool people there. And then, Mick, I would love to show in Madison, so please do let me know. I love Madison, Wisconsin. Okay. What else before we really get cooking today, guys? There was an election that happened in America. That's the country I live in, America, last night. It was a primary in a lot of different states. And here in California, we had a primary election. And, someone who's, I guess I could say a friend of the show because they went on the show. The homie Ray Huang was running for mayor. It's not looking good. I'll be honest with you guys. It's not looking good. And there was a lot of sort of drama about this race here in Los Angeles, and a lot of drama about like what you should do if you're a leftist, and this is the thing that I'll give the specific example of what happened here in Los Angeles, but I think this is something that applies quite broadly. So we had this explicitly socialist candidate, Ray Huang. She literally came on this stream and said that she was a socialist and a Marxist. And, she also informed us that her, Marxism is something that came out of her study of Christianity, which is crazy. And, she was someone I was just excited to get behind because ideologically, I very much agreed with her. I got to spend some time with her, and I just really fucked with her as a person. A lot of people I know and supported her campaign as well. what happened was right before the deadline for the mayoral election, and up until the deadline, it seemed like the landscape was going to be incumbent Mayor Bass, who's sort of, like establishment Democrat type. Used to be a lot more based when she was younger, very much establishment Democrat at this point. So you had her. What? Sorry, I see a funny thing in the chat. So you had Karen Bass. You were then going to have Ray Huang representing a socialist alternative, and then Spencer Pratt, the reality TV guy from The Hills. And there was a tech guy, Matt, who was also running. The day before the filing deadline, a city council member from Los Angeles named Nithya Raman put her hat in the race. This was confusing for a lot of people because Nithya Raman had already endorsed incumbent mayor Karen Bass. It also became weird because it created a kind of speculative schism among people on the left, because you sort of had. Also, I want to use the live feature on Blue Sky. I don't know how to do it yet, and there is no option on the platform I'm currently using, so I'll figure it out for next time. But so this tension kind of came up of like, okay, so we have this election in Los Angeles. This is in the wake of Zoran winning in New York. So much of the language is like, who's going to be the next Mondani of the West Coast? And people, tried to turn both Ray and Nithya into, California Mondani. And it didn't, the comparison wasn't one for one in either case. But what I kind of experienced was seeing a lot of more on the ground activist and more explicitly left wing people get excited about Ray Huang. And then I saw a lot of Hollywood people get excited about Nithya Raman. For example, Adam Conover of Adam Ruins Everything fame, this is the smartest, most politically engaged comedian in the world, the real Joe Rogan of the left, Adam Conover. Adam Conover like worked for the campaign and interviewed Nithya and did much stuff with her. And a lot of the sort of 3 dots on your profile page say go live the next time. Okay, I'll do it next time. But it got kind of ugly, and this thing happened that's a very like lib dem thing, where on the internet especially, people started saying if you vote for Ray Huang, you're throwing your vote away. If you vote for Ray Huang, you're actually voting for the weird right-wing candidate that sells crystals, because what you should be doing is supporting Nithya Raman to help her win, and you're actually a bad leftist, and you're really like kind of right-wing. And then some guy that I don't know personally named Travis, who is like a TV writer whose wife is a more successful TV writer, like made fun of me on Twitter for voting for Ray Huang, and implied that I was like dumb and didn't know anything. So I chirped back, and I know I shouldn't chirp back. For anyone who saw Leave a Comment, you know that you should never chirp back. But I chirped back, chirp, and had a really not fun disagreement with this guy on the internet. Oh, and I realized my office door is open. I don't want people to walk by and hear us. Hold on. This is just for us. Okay, if you're in the hallway, subscribe at the link below. But we kind of got into the space basically of you're a bad leftist if you vote for the leftist candidate and don't vote for the more like progressive Democratic candidate. One of my favorite newsletters, Substack things, No Bad Days, the writer, I think you say her name is Tazbe, but I might be wrong. If she ever sees this, I'm so sorry. But she made a point in her Substack about this sort of situation that like it's never really like it's up to the candidate to earn a vote. And this is something I really believe. I really, really believe that the whole notion of, and this, we saw this happen during, the last election where some people voted for like Jill Stein or whoever instead of Joseph Biden, and then they were, or Kamala Harris, and they're like, oh, it's your fault, and blah, 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 blah. But I don't buy that logic. The logic I buy is that it's it's the role of the candidate to convince people to vote for them. That is what I personally think. I think it's the job of the candidate to get people to vote for them. So, like in this past election, if in Los Angeles, if Nithya Raman and her supporters thought it was important that the supporters of like Ray Huang actually join their coalition, it was on them to reach out. And the way to do that isn't to be like, you're an idiot and you're dumb, come join our team. Because if you're like, you're an idiot and you're dumb, I don't want to be on your team. You know what I mean? Who would want to be on that team? So, but what it looks like here in California, and it's hard to tell because like the system here takes a very long time. It'll be a very long time before we know stuff for sure. I can maybe like look up results right now and see if anything has changed. But sorry. But it looks like the situation we're in here in Los Angeles, specifically in California more generally, is let's see. Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the results right now. So for Los Angeles mayor, it looks like our option is going to be Karen Bass, incumbent Democrat. I'm very much like centrist corporate Democrat, versus Spencer Pratt, weird reality star psycho. Who said that reality people could start running governments? Then in our governor race, which is important because California is the fourth largest economy in the world, largest state in the union, our governor options, the current leader in the primary is Steve Hilton, a weird British guy who moved to America and became a Fox News correspondent. And then you have Becerra, who's like funded by Chevron and shit. And then Tom Steyer, who I've talked to, hanging in third. He's probably not going to make it. So it's interesting because people look at California sometimes as like California. And let me see. To look at the chat. But yeah, people act like it's California, but it's not. And I think that in general, we can run the risk of overstating the influence that the left has on contemporary American electoral politics. I do not have full thoughts on this yet. It's something I want to think about, but I definitely am feeling a little bit, how do I put it? Like, I'm feeling a little dejected about the whole electoral politics thing. I'm not really sure, what to do with that. I am someone who I think balances between like, I'm not one of those leftists who's so anti-electoralism that I won't vote for someone. Like I voted for friggin' billionaire Tom Steyer in the governor's primary in California. And I voted for Tom Steyer precisely because he was for single payer healthcare. It's where you can pay for healthcare in some. So single payer insurance, but also single payer insurance is something that Tom Steyer was for, is for prosecuting ICE agents, was for taxing billionaires and things of that nature. So, I'm totally fine to strategically vote for people who are willing to make material conditions better than they are. I think what I'm skeptical of is the way in which certain organizations, like, for example, Democratic Socialists of America, an organization that I pay dues for, I at various points been more involved than I am now. I used to be a member of a caucus there. I'm just not really that involved anymore. I feel like really it has like wedded themselves to both electoralism and the Democratic Party in a way that it's hard to imagine like really gaining power via that mechanism in a way that matters. So, and this kind of relates to what we talked about last week on the show when we talked about the ending of leftist books and stuff like that, and what they sort of, or where they kind of fall short and become parodies of themselves. I just think like in a post-Bernie era, it's exciting that people that we don't hate have won elections, but I also think that as overstated the influence and the power of electoralism. Another thing I was thinking about a lot this week is the necessity of like bifurcating certain language. So this is maybe like a pedantic thing. I'm curious people think about this. I think that we need to stop saying progressive if you're a socialist. Like I think that being progressive and being a socialist are two different things, or being progressive and being a communist are two different things, or even being progressive and being a leftist are two different things. Like I think that we've started to use the term progressive in such a broad way that in the mayoral election in the city of Los Angeles, I saw so many people be like, but you need to support the progressive candidate. Why aren't you supporting the progressive candidate? The progressive candidate was the best thing. And I wanted to say, like, I'm not a progressive. I'm not a, mainline Democrat who wants to progress the party forward in some sort of meaningful way. I'm more of like a communist. I'm more of a weird, scary, So, and I understand the desire to do that because I've done it as well, where it's easy to say like progressive. It's something that has become a part of the parlance. But I think an important thing is like if you are someone who identifies politically as a leftist, a socialist, a communist, an anarchist, I think it's okay just to say that. I think it's okay to just say like, listen, I'm kind of a communist, and I hope that's okay with you. But that's kind of my vibe. I'm a communist. So, I'm not progressive. I'm not a progressive. I'm a communist or a socialist in the Marxist tradition. And if you don't get that, you don't get that. And something I'm going to talk about more in the next big video I'm working on is on communism. I will say if you're on psychedelics for the stream, and you shouldn't be, if you're on any form of psychedelic for this one, maybe leave because you're not going to like the sound effects. But it's something I want to think about. So there you go. I hope that I'm still here. I hope this stream's still happening. I can't really tell. Chimchu Tree says, I'm a progressive. I'm not a progressive. Yeah, I think there's a way to say that. And I want to say this in a clear way too. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being, progressive. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that we just need to be careful about our language. So that means that like it's kind of unproductive sometimes to just not say the thing that you are. Okay. So let's get into some topics. I have some stuff I want to look at today. I'll start looking into that again. If you're here, this is Burns Notice. I'm your host, Michael Burns. I'm known for posting things on the website youtube.com. Shout out if you're old enough to remember the website whitehouse.com. Special shout out to you if you ever made someone in like elementary school or something like that go to whitehouse.com in like the library or the computer lab or something like that. I'm not going to describe what it is, but if any of you in the chat ever went to whitehouse.com and remember that what that is, you can let our friends know about it in the chat. Okay. Let's see. A really great picture with this article. I want to check out this article. We'll look at a few things today. This one is called Hyperfascism. Whoa. By Ned Resnikoff. I hope I'm saying it right. Resnikoff. It's a short read. There's your guy. Elon Musk. I'm not a Nazi. I'm a good dad. I'm a really good dad. Yeah, I said that my daughter is dead because she went trans, but it doesn't mean I'm a bad dad. Actually, it does mean you're a bad dad. Elon, it means you're a piece of shit. Okay. So this article is called Hyperfascism, Some Notes Towards the Theory of Trumpism. It came out on the 1st. Hey, this is Ned Resnikoff's book. He's talking about his book. It's coming out by French University Press. It says last week, the political scientist Siva Gunitsky Is this big enough? Let's see. Should I make it bigger on the screen? Okay. How's this? Let's see. I want to make sure we can all read it okay. I want to make sure we can all read it okay. Last week, the political scientist Siva Gunitsky, whose Substack I highly recommend, posted an interesting summary of recent research on the features that contribute to autocratic regime stability. In other words, why is it the case that people like Donald Trump are able to successfully stay in office when maybe we don't want them to be? As Gunitsky sums it up, the central technology of autocratic rule is not repression, but administration. Not repression, but administration. I think that's the thing we all worry about is repression because it seems a lot more obvious and a lot more sort of in one's face. But administration, you know, the whenever I think about administration, I just want to say Kafka-esque. The Kafka-esque administration. The dictators with the most staying power tend to be the ones who are most concerned with the boring day-to-day work of keeping the regime humming along smoothly. The more dramatic spectacles that people tend to associate with tyranny, purges, violent suppression of protests, and so on, are often symptoms of regime weakness, not strength. That's something that makes like some sense to me at a basic level. Longtime readers know that I'm a big believer in the power of bureaucratic administration to make or break governments. So the findings Gunitsky highlighted were not hugely surprising, but it was nonetheless clarifying to explore the details and nuances of some of them. And once again got me wondering how to classify whatever it is that the Trump regime is up to. This is a tougher. I think we've like done a not a bad job, but I think we're still struggling to figure out like, you know, what is Trump doing? You know, we've some people are like he's an authoritarian, and other people have like looked at it differently, been like actually he's a fascist. But I think we've still struggled because he's so ideologically incoherent to say like what he is, and because it's been hard to say what he is, it's hard to respond to it analytically. Let's see. Oh, I made this comment go up, and now it's not showing. But shout out to the E and everything new here. But a Wisecrack OG, happy to find community live in session. Come hang out. Come hang out. We want you. We want you here. So thank you for showing up. On the one hand, we have a pretty straightforward answer to the question: fascism. I'm one of those people who's been pretty skeptical about if it makes sense to actually like, call Trump a fascist. I think I'm maybe like influenced by the work of like Daniel Bessner in that regard. Only because I think Bessner and others have argued that fascism, as we understand it, is so tied to like post World War I European social and economic conditions that to try to use the same frame we use to understand Mussolini to understand Trump just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I do think there's something to that, and there's something maybe like overly reductive because then if we use fascism as our frame for understanding Trump, we're maybe stuck in an analytic that doesn't make as much sense. However, I'm sure some of you have read a version of more recent fascism that's helpful for talking about Trump. The years-long fascism debate about Trumpism has been settled no less in authority than Robert O. Paxton, the foremost English language scholar of fascism, said after January 6th that calling Trump a fascist just seems not acceptable but necessary. Trump's own former chief of staff agrees. Even some dead enders have been forced to concede that at minimum, Trump has moved in the direction of fascism. I mean, fair, I guess. I still don't know. I still don't know if that's now that thing I tried to show a while ago showed up. Computer's not being my friend today. But was it ever my friend? On the other hand, fascist is a broad and sometimes sort of fuzzy category. Trumpism is not Nazism or Francoism. It is its own thing. I think this is really important to rather than obsess with trying to fit Trumpism in a pre-existing diagnostic category, to maybe think more creatively and constructively about what Trumpism is, like how we understand this thing, because for better or worse, it's becoming a dominant mode of doing politics. And we've seen the same thing here in Los Angeles. So this guy Spencer Pratt, who my fellow old millennials might know of as the guy who was on The Hills. What if I did The Hills? his run this campaign that plays by the Trump playbook. I was listening to him talk yesterday at his election party. At one point, he randomly said, like, the communists have lost. I'm like, who? Where were the communists? I want to hang out with them. Tell the communists to come talk to me. I want to be friends with them. But he does this whole kind of populist thing about like I'm not just for Democrats, for Republicans. I'm for all Californians who want to live in safety. In the same way that Trumpism involves this vilification of some necessary other. In Trump's case, that's always been migrants, immigrants, people from Mexico. They're rapists, they're murderers, and they're coming to get your children. Trump's been on that wave with Spencer Pratt. His whole thing has been sort of demonizing unhoused people. So it's very much like I want to live in a city where I can walk my kids to school and not have to see a poor or unhoused person. And so I think that's like a part of the Trumpism thing. And when we see this replicated in local politics or regional politics, you always got to have like the baddies. The difference Trumpism emerged out of a very different set of circumstances. That difference in material conditions forms the basis of Adam Tooze's argument against the fascism thesis. Is anyone a Tooze head here? I've never gone that big into the Adam Tooze world, but I know people like Tooze a lot, a whole lot. What's with the weird soundboard stuff? You got a problem with it? Want to say something? Want to say something? Say it to my face. No, it's just kind of fun. I think it adds a little vibe. I do think it adds a little humanity. I'm probably overdoing it right now, but we're gonna fall into a groove. So don't worry. And Eddie, thank you for inviting DE and everything to the party. Although it makes me upset because Eddie said he was driving and now he's in the chat just talking. So please don't die. We don't want anyone to die for this. But here's the Tooze quote. It says, if the name of the game is talking about fascism in the 21st century, if the aim of the game is talking about fascism in the 21st century, if the aim of the game in talking about fascism, I know how to read, in the 21st century is actually to suggest real similarities with the movements of a century ago and to draw practical political conclusions from such inferred similarities, the exercise is likely to prove misleading and unhelpful. This is similar to what I think Dan Bessner has argued. The conditions of the 21st century in both Europe and the United States are radically different from those prevailing in Italy in 1922, and so too are the movements that emerge in response to these conditions. When we talked to Clara Mattei, I realized the Clara Mattei interview, I think it's only on Patreon. It's free right now. If anyone's missed that, I'll put it up on the Sideburns channel because that was a good interview. But in Clara Mattei's Escape from Capitalism, something we talked about here, so what was one of our Burns After Readings books, I think Clara Mattei does a really good job of identifying the similarities with the conditions of Italy in the 1920s and now, but not to emphasize the fascism thing. What's really interesting about Mattei's work, who is a Italian radical economist, Mattei emphasizes that something that was happening in the lead up to fascism in Italy was the commingling of fascist and liberal capitalists. So like one of the John Morgan, one of the JP Morgan guys, JP Morgan Chase, like one of the Morgan guys was like, oh, Mussolini seems like a pretty good guy. Pretty good guy. I think he's a pretty good guy. And, as Mattei argues, there's a history of this overlapping of fascism and a certain form of liberalism. I know I was a little fast and loose last time I talked about that, and some people very rightly had some questions for me. But that both things sort of represent a allegiance to capital. And I think that's something we miss. And I don't know, this article might go on to just completely disagree with me. But I think when we focus so much on the Trump is fascist and Mussolini was fascist, and how do we stop fascist, we kind of miss that like Trump is at core a really sloppy type of capitalist in a really weird way. And that's also why there's been a sort of much broader consensus, and even consensus from like the liberal community, the tech community, and the finance community, that we might not have seen coming. I don't find this especially persuasive. said rest and cough. Look at us. Look at us just reading things that we might disagree with, and that's okay. It's totally fine. 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 Successful ideologies always outlast the material conditions that give rise to them in the first place. That's an interesting point. Successful ideologies always outlast the material conditions that gave rise to them in the first place. Maybe, but then I would think that ideology would have to adapt to further material conditions. So even if you're saying that like fascism emerged because of a set of economic conditions in 1920s Europe, and that ideology is able to exist beyond those conditions, even if you're going to talk about fascism 100 years later, you have to at least do that in interaction with a very different set of economic and social conditions, which you might do. You might as well say that the 21st century is so different from Enlightenment Europe that it makes no sense to speak of modern American liberalism. I might be okay saying that. But we should grant twos half a point. The modern United States is a very different place from 1920s Italy or 1930s Germany. And those differences are critical to an accurate understanding of Trump's fascism. So should we ask ourselves, what kind of fascism is MAGA fascism? What kind of fascism is MAGA fascism? Yeah, no one's audio is goofed up. Oh no, hard of hearing in a live chat with captions off. I don't know how to turn the captions off. Or turn them on. Let me figure that out. I never want people to think, I never want people to feel that they can't be around. Oh, is someone mad at me? Just catching up on the chat. Henry, if you edit this later. One non-blonde says, these effects are unnecessary. I mean, they are, but can you guys just like let me have fun sometimes? You know? And I think I'm going to have a different microphone soon that will help as well. So I'm figuring it all out. I'm really figuring it all out, and I really appreciate your patience. And because of that, I wanted to sing you a song about how much I love you. I'm not going to do it. It would make so many of you mad. But yeah, maybe I'll look into a live caption program. I think that would be a really cool thing to do. We'll work on it. If anyone has ideas for the channel, by the way, ADHD digression, you can deal with it. Like I talked about before, I emphasized in the video about the second year of the channel, I really wanted to bring on a full-time producer. It's happening. They're starting they're starting next month, and it's going to allow things to be better for me to make. I'm not trying to make more stuff. I'm trying to make the best stuff we can make. I'm trying to make everything go a little smoother. And then one of the big goals with having the producer on is I can do less of that stuff and do more of the like Patreon stuff, reading group stuff, lecture stuff, community building stuff. So, but if anyone has ideas, if you're on the Patreon, there's like a suggestions thing on the Discord. But if you're not on the Discord or not on the Patreon, you can always just hit me up. Again, easy to find. Let me see if I can just do a mellow version. Of this effect. So it doesn't make you all. It doesn't make mad. It doesn't make mad. Okay, so the author wants to suggest that Trumpism is best understood as a species of hyperfascism. I mean, this of course makes me think. I've like been showing this book a lot recently because I keep waiting to make a video on it. It makes me think of Hyperpolitics, the book here by Anton Yeager, and kind of this, the use of hyper, hyper normalization, hyperpolitics, hyperfascism, hypercapitalism. It's becoming a very popular term. Sometimes I wonder if it's helping us or if it means anything. But shout out to Hypernormal Studios. By hyperfascism, I don't mean super fascism or anything like that. Instead, I'm using the hyper prefix. Ooh, here we go. Some of you guys are going to like this. In a way similar to how Baudrillard deploys it in his definition of hyperreality as a sort of representation that's more real than whatever it was originally meant to represent. Again, if you haven't heard this before, hyperreality is a representation that is more real whenever it was originally meant to represent. And one of the examples here is like Disneyland. Think about Disney. Think about like Main Street USA Disney if you've been there before. Main Street USA Disney is a representation of an ideal American city, or I see what you're saying, Eddie. I see what Eddie's saying. Where's my yeah, I have like a mix for both of the things. And then where's my signals coming through there, or I can do my mic level higher there, maybe bring the tone up there. Okay. So, we got that for now. But think about like Disney and Main Street USA, right? It is a representation of a sort of small town America that does not, nor has it ever existed. It's a hyper reality. It takes the idea of, the sort of small town we've seen in the movies or on TV shows or that we've dreamed of. And it creates this hyper real version of the thing. I think a lot of times when we look at what like certain AI technologies are doing, especially when it comes to the social elements, hyper real versions of human interactions or relations or things like that. But Beauregard has noted this. A lot of people have talked about this. Oh, Anton Jaeger's comes up here. See, I keep getting ahead of things. This also shows you that I'm just reading this live for the first time because that feels more fun and organic to me. But that's what the hyper reality thing means. Ghost Roll says, hyperfascism sounds bad. Is that bad? Seems bad. Okay, so he says, I'm also influenced by Anton Jaeger's suggestion that hyperpolitics, or constant and frenetic political activity in the absence of any structures, that might convert this activity into real institutional change. And I'll just for those who haven't read this book, also, I need to post this. I have a link from Verso for 30% off this book, if anyone wants to read it, that they gave me for channel audience member people. The argument about the hyper political that comes up in the book is that we live in this world where we have constant, frenetic, all the time political activity, right? Like so much of what we see on the internet is constantly getting into people arguing about politics and the media, and we got to organize. There's always news, disasters happening, and like there's like wars happening, and it never stops. And everything is political. Everything is political, and it never stops being political. But then nothing happens. Like we live in this world where the discourse is so incredibly political, but where are the structures that might convert that activity into real institutional change? I've thought about this even relative to the primary elections taking place here in California and some of the discussions about the relationship between things like DSA and electoralism. Like if you don't have structures or organizations that could actually convert that political activity into change, what's the point? It's very it's kind of gooning adjacent. And I know that sounds like I'm being silly, but I promise I'm not being silly. Like it's gooning. Oh, why is it so cringe? It's gooning in as much as far as I understand gooning, it's the act. It's like participating in a masturbatory activity that does not involve the consummation of the masturbatory act. So one is consuming pornography, one is participating to an extent in the physical act of masturbation, but they never come. And something similar happens in our political discourse when think about how much time, and I do this, you do this, we all do this. I probably do it more than anyone needs to, but we spend so much time talking about politics, reading about politics. Everything's political. I can't listen to this person or watch that person because they have bad politics, et cetera, et cetera. But then everything's kind of the same. Again, I think about all of the radical political and social activity of the past 6 years, and a lot of that even being centered in the state that I live in, and what does that lead? Where does that lead? In the super progressive Los Angeles, I might get this fucking MAGA asshole from the hills that wants to put homeless people in death camps to be my mayor. I might at the state level. My best case scenario here in California is some establishment Biden Democrat who takes lots of money from oil companies. That's sort of what has all of this been for if that's where we end up, you know? Okay, so he says, so what is hyperfascism? It's hyper-real, hyper-political fascism. It's a dramatic reenactment of totalitarian domination in a time and place where the infrastructure for real totalitarianism is nowhere to be found. I'll read that again because I'm reading this for the first time, so I'm kind of making sense of this as we go. So, what is hyperfascism? Let's see. It is hyper-real, hyper-political fascism. It's a dramatic reenactment of totalitarian domination in a time and place where the infrastructure for real totalitarianism is nowhere to be found. It's the signs and symbols of fascism detached from the machinery of the Nazi war economy or the large-scale organized street violence of the Italian black shirts. So I guess the idea there is that we have the ideological structures and social domination of fascism without those systems that enacted it. And, you know, I could see someone reading this, and maybe the author will get into it, and saying, like, I don't know, man, like, remember in Minnesota when ICE just like killed those two people in the streets and nothing happened? That seems kind of like the machinery and the infrastructure of totalitarianism. I know that since then ICE has been slightly defanged. But when we talk about it, we might look at this video later that my friend Mary Houlihan made, but you know, we look at the existence of things that are kind of like concentration camps for migrants and immigrants in America, like that kind of seems like the structure of fascism. It says, make no mistake, hyperfascism is still fascism, but it is a shallow sort of fascism, obsessed with outward appearances and completely uninterested in everything else. I think that is true, and that's very true of Trumpism. Trumpism is like it's like the worst aesthetic you've ever seen, but it is an aesthetic nonetheless. It is as if the architects of the Trump regime had cribbed their entire governing agenda from cheap cyberpunk thrillers about fascist dystopias. I mean, everyone involved in that administration, everyone involved in Silicon Valley right now, just read like dystopian sci-fi and really didn't get it. They really didn't get it. They certainly haven't given much thought to how authoritarian regimes consolidate popular consent. In fact, they're acting like the 2024 election represented the end of politics, and therefore the end of any need on their part to modulate their behavior in order to ensure regime stability. Because like fascism in a more historic sense, I think like one of the main functions of it was operating in a way where like it at least presented itself with a modicum of stability. Like, you know, when you look at what Hitler and Mussolini wanted to do, they wanted to advocate or paint the picture that they were doing something that made society better and more enjoyable for everyone involved. And I just don't think we're seeing a lot of that. I don't think we're seeing the end of politics. This helps to explain the key difference between the Trump regime and the more successful long-running authoritarian regimes that appear in Gunitsky's literature review. I'm getting slightly distracted because someone is screaming outside of my window. In my old office, people would scream outside the window, and I was on the first floor, so that was kind of scary. Now I'm less scared. I'm going to take a water break. Also, guys, happy birthday to not only friend of the show, one of the architects of the show's legacy, producer Henry. It's Henry's birthday today, turning 36 years old. So say hi to Henry. Subscribe to Techno Poverty if you haven't already. That would be as good a gift as any. Okay, so to keep on with this article, this helps to explain the key difference between the Trump regime, and the more successful authoritarian ones. As Gunitsky notes, the most resilient autocracies are those that look the most normal. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's, I'll stop because this is going to say it. With somewhat functioning bureaucracies, legislatures where people sometimes argue, and cabinets with ministers rotating in a way that, if I take my glasses off, kind of resembles the churn of democratic governance. I do not think that George W. Bush and his presidential regime was fascist as such, but I think they did a much better job of doing really gnarly shit, but presenting it in a way where like people were like, oh, this is normal. This is kind of just like how stuff happens. And you know, there's a reason that one of the biggest phrases I think we've heard since Trump took office is like, this is not normal. The idea there being like, it's easier to be a sick little fascist freak if you do it in a way that presents a type of normalcy or presents a type of stability. I think watching like Andor, yeah, I'm referencing a star. But I think in Andor we get this picture of how, like, what is it, the Empire or whatever, they're trying to structure society in a way that like seems like it makes sense and where people think their jobs have meaning and there's like a purpose here. And we know that behind the scenes really gnarly shit is happening. Whereas what we have in the Trump regime is if like the bad guy just gets on TV and says the bad thing. Trump's regime has a dysfunctional bureaucracy, tolerates no dissent, and is prone to erratic firings and staff purges. And it kicked off Trump's second term by voluntarily plunging into the sort of fiascos that typically signal profound regime weakness: violent confrontations with protesters, open and unpredictable campaigns of terror, and needless provocations against other countries. Why? Well, one possible explanation is that violent purges and jackbooted pogroms are the sort of thing that fascist bad guys do in movies and TV. I assume this is why he's going to get into the hyper reality of the whole thing, because I think when we talk about hyper real fascism, like there's a reason why all of these people, and this is me kind of riffing off of this, so hopefully it doesn't contradict what the article is saying, but like it's not me, guys. This is, I mean, I hope I can say this. Allie's on her way to Los Angeles, and it turns out she's gonna hang out really close to my office. So hopefully we'll get to say hi. But, you know, there's a reason why like a lot of people in this regime are obsessed with media and AI and memes and content, often really bad content, because they envision what they're doing as a sort of hyper reality. And the weirdest thing about it is like some of the memes and the AI stuff that get made to kind of like posture or to buttress the Trump ideology and regime. A bunch of that shit is already like hyper real nonsense. And then they try to turn the reality into that hyper real nonsense. It's very much not good. And but the same thing happens when, one second, when on the left, the Democrats, when those people get really obsessed with like Aaron Sorkin, or even when very well-intentioned humans, many of whom I like very much, hold on to Andor. It's this idea of like a rebellious thing. I mean, it's better than the West Wing, don't get me wrong, but there's this tendency in a society where, oh, I think I'm kind of cooking right here. There's this tendency, cook alert, that in our society where nothing real is possible, where the horizon of political possibility has been so neutered, that all we have is an imagination produced for us by others. So we have to glob on to some sort of media product, because again, what is real is that which is media, that which is content, et cetera, et cetera. And that kind of becomes the political imagination, such that our entire political imagination ends up being a version of that sort of hyper real thing. This is why I say Trump is practicing a form of hyper real fascism. Its models are less prior fascist regimes than lurid media representations of those regimes. I like that line. Its models are less prior fascist regimes than lurid media representations of those regimes. Now, if you think I'm being glib when I say that Trump's acolytes are self-consciously imitating pop culture supervillains, don't take my word for it. Government departments now regularly post winking references to cinematic monsters like American Psycho's Patrick Bateman, to say nothing of outright Nazi iconography. Everything else, the threats to invade Greenland, the concentration camps for undocumented migrants, the invasion of Minneapolis, exists on the same continuum. It's all part of the show. And I do think that's important. Like, hey guys, techno poverty, aka Henry is here. And it's Henry's birthday, guys. So happy birthday to Henry. And please, if you do not already subscribe to Techno Poverty, do it. They're doing some cool stuff. They're doing some Jameson stuff over there. They got a lot of good stuff going on. But it's done for the sake of spectacle. I mean, that's the difference too. Like, obviously, fascism has long had a strange relationship with media and film and things like that. But it does feel like, in a very unsubtle way, so much of what Trumpism is like the performance of a type of hyper-real fascism for the sake of capturing it to produce a type of content to reinforce that fake reality. You know, the fact that it's all done being done for the sake of spectacle sometimes leads liberal elected officials and talking heads to mistake it for a distraction from real issues like the Epstein files or the price of gas. But that's a mistake, and not only because the spectacle of ICE raids ruins real human lives. Oh, this is a good line. Spectacle is not a distraction from Trump's real agenda. It is Trump's real agenda. Spectacle is not a distraction from Trump's real agenda. It is Trump's real agenda. It does not make it any less dangerous. In some ways, it is more dangerous because the logic of spectacle is the logic of constant escalation. I think that's the thing. Like when Trump talks about, blowing a civilization off the map or something, I think he doesn't think about the human toll for this stuff. It's all about like the spectacle. We live in a hyper political age. I guess shout out our guy here. And so hyperfascism hyperfascism is not today's only major hyper political movement. Oh no, he talks about Hassan Piker. I'm afraid. Because if he has something bad about Hassan Piker, and I feel like I have to stick up for Hassan Piker, people will be mad at me or something, People are really precious. People are really precious about that. I will say that I hate body cam footage being used in entertainment. I think that one documentary, The Perfect Neighbor, did a pretty good job with it, but especially for digital content, the way that gets used, I think is kind of gross. The streamer Hassan Piker, who I don't know. I know who he is. I don't know that guy. For example, is probably better described as hyper leftist than a bona fide socialist. Interesting. Hyper leftist. His work bears little resemblance to what used to be understood as the meat and potatoes of socialist movement building, with its emphasis on building up trade unions and other tightly organized institutions. Like, okay, I mean, yes. I guess one of the issues too is like there's not really an analog for like what would Hassan Piker have been in the 1920s? Like a writer, a rhetorician, a political educator or something. Like the vast majority of political influencers, he is not a leader or organizer, but an entrepreneur offering parasocial identification with a charismatic celebrity in place of anything resembling organized political action. Hardcore. I mean, that's something that I know a lot of people would definitely disagree with. They definitely disagree. Katie in the chat says, I feel like that section kind of ties into your ContraPoints video. Yeah, I do feel like that. No conversation in the chat that's either pro or anti-Hassan because I don't want people to get mad. But this line, the vast majority of political influencers, I kind of want to write a thing on political influencers that I would then make a video out of because it's all about spectacle for me. Like the vast majority of political influencers, he's not a leader or an organizer. Yeah. Well, I think he's done some organizing or like supported other organizers, but an entrepreneur offering parasocial identification with a charismatic celebrity in place of anything resembling organized political action. I kind of then wonder, like, because that description, someone who's not a leader and organizer, but an entrepreneur offering parasocial identification with a charismatic celebrity in place of anything resembling organized political action, man, it also sounds like most Democratic politicians, who have built a celebrity around themselves and increasingly make like parasocial content to shore up their own political power without really doing anything. Shout out We're in Hell, like I told you guys before. We're in Hell and myself, we're going to be hosting an event on June 27th in Los Angeles. Everyone should be bombarded. Should be absolutely freaking bombarded with info on that. I promise. But I don't know. I'm trying to like make sense of this sort of line, and I don't really know what I think about it. I guess I think that like it's both right, but also I wonder the motivation for identifying Hassan, because I think when we talk about like political influencers, Hassan's someone who shows up at places, he raises money for people, he campaigns for folks. I don't know. It's weird. And we have to figure this thing out. We have to figure it out. This is the form so many self-identified radical movements take at the end of history. I kind of agree with this too, because I think this is going to be a little spicy. So if you can't, I think the spicy voice is probably more like a little spicy. But I'm going to say something a little spicy. No one clip this or anything like that. But I do think that there's, I guess I'll describe it this way. When I think about, and I've thought about this in reference to the recent primary election, organizations like DSA, I'm just like, well, what do they do? Like, what is the point of this? And for a lot of people, it does seem like a kind of aesthetic performance. There's a lot of unemployed or partially employed young white people in the creative class that make a type of political organizing or participation in a political organization their social identity and a way to have fun, be cool. And there's this part of me that's almost like maybe we shouldn't be friends with people we're organizing with, because it shouldn't be a social vibe. It almost needs to be a little bit more brass tacks. I know it sounds boring, but I think that there's a value in using popular modes of communication and mediums to get people to think about stuff differently. I think that there's a risk of letting one's message or end game be completely co-opted by that medium or form. They advertise themselves as concrete alternatives to liberalism, but there's nothing inside the tin. There's nothing inside the tin. I mean, yeah, this is something that we've been talking about. I think it's an important question. This is the form so many self-identified radical movements take at the end of history. They may advertise themselves as concrete alternatives to liberalism, but there's nothing inside the tin. The good news, and this even relates to the book thing from last week. The good news is that this means hyper-fascism can't survive long as a governing ideology because it has no program for long-term institution building. I mean, I think we're seeing that with, there wouldn't be a discussion around Trump having a third term if there was the establishment of institutions or parties that would carry on Trumpism. It does seem like, to an extent, not that Trumpism dies with Trump, but that this particular regime will probably die with Trump, and there's not a clear heir apparent. The bad news, there's bad news as well. The bad news is there may be no limits to the damage it can cause if left unchecked. Hyperfascism's sole imperative is to produce one horrible transfixion image after another. The images themselves may be hyper real, but the cost of creating them is all too real. I mean, that's a pretty good piece. Let me share the link. This is, again, from the writer Ned Rissenkoff. I might be saying that wrong. That was such a British phrase, nothing inside the tin. That really made me feel British, even saying that out loud. Yeah, hyperfascism, Ned Resnikoff, some notes towards a theory of Trumpism. Interesting stuff. We gotta think about it. Whoa, why am I here? Why am I little? Make me big. I should be the main guy. This is my show. Why is that the main guy? I want to be the main guy on the show. I want to be the main man on the program here. And Tonks points out, which is why it's so important to stop Pratt. Definitely. I mean, I think the one thing is it's hard to imagine him winning a general because so much of the vote was split amongst different Democratic operatives. Okay. Just a reminder, my name is Michael. This is my weekly stream. I call it Burns Notice because I try to get as many puns out of my surname to be British as I possibly can. I'm a little behind on video stuff right now. I don't think it'll end up coming out this week, but I'm working on a video about the Pope and AI. I don't know if you guys read the Pope's AI thing. It's pretty awesome. There's a lot that there's a lot that he gets into in it that I think like kind of like vibes with stuff that we've been talking about a lot. And in particular, the Pope's encyclical on AI has a lot to do with like the issue of dehumanization and the way that like technology is participating in this act. Dehumanization. Nick Braddock said he read it. But yeah, I recommend checking it out if you haven't already. But I'm doing a video on it. I'm trying to keep it short, but it might not be short enough. And if anyone's read things on it they think are interesting, send it my way because I'm still kind of getting it ready. Working on that, and then I'll have the video on hyperpolitics, and then we'll have the video on communism being chill. And there's some other stuff. There's some other stuff coming up too. And a reminder, if you're tuning in late, I did tease an event June 27th in Los Angeles, Art in the Age of the Algorithm. Lineup again was hosted by We're in Hell and myself. Speakers, participants, performers, including Open Mike Eagle, Duncan Clark, JJ McCullough, Alexander Avia, J-Reg Archad, Skylar Higley, and Mary Houlihan. Music from Aaron Gilbert, Steele and Friends. It's going to be a full-on improvised jazz smorgasbord. I'm just trying to do it in a really Scandinavian accent. Space YouTube says, I'm kind of over this. The left is always infighting shit. It is not why the left is fractured. I think I agree with you. Well, I don't know if I agree with your reasoning, but I agree with like what you're saying, and that I agree that the leftist infighting stuff is wildly overrated. Let's see. Just like catching up on all the stuff that I want us to do, that I want us to do today. If anyone has anything they want to share, feel free. And it's just a constant reminder that if you want to get more plugged in and if you want to support the channel, you can join Burns Theory. There is a link below, but it's just burnstheory.com. It's quite easy. If you want to get into it. But yeah, over on Burns Theory, we're talking videos early with no ads. We're talking Discord server. We're talking visiting guest lectures. We're talking office hours, which again, I forgot to record the first time, and I'm definitely going to record the second one. We're talking lectures and reading group stuff. We're talking, you'll get access to like movies as we keep making them. That's what we're talking about over there. So if you feel like joining, burnstheory.com, it helps. It helps a lot. I try not to overdo it. It helps a lot. Hopefully I'll get paid more by sponsors soon so I can stop bugging you guys so much about Patreon, but it helps and I appreciate you. But as always, that's not like a guilt mechanism. Anyone who's here is my friend, and just by watching and stuff, you're supporting me a lot. I didn't watch the FD video. I thought about watching it on stream, but I was like, that'll get too hectic. That'll get too hairy. I don't want to get involved in drama. There's been a lot of internet YouTube-y drama recently, and if you know me, I like to stay out of internet drama. I do not like internet drama. Okay, there's some other stuff I want to talk about today. This one might be kind of a bummer. Let's talk about a short thing, and then we can talk about a longer thing. This one is going to be based on a tweet. I know you love nothing more than me putting tweets on the screen. We love tweets on the screen and snakes on the plane. So this is from academic and writer Sarah Osmond. I'm pretty sure she tweeted this. Let's see, was it yesterday? Yesterday. Now, Sarah Osmond is a writer and currently a teacher at the University of Chicago. And she shared this that came in via the office of the president. Now, if you don't know anything, by the way, like if you don't know anything, the University of Chicago is one of the top intellectual institutions in the West. It's like the Harvard of the Great Lakes or something like that. It's kind of like, it's always in like the top 10 of universities in America. Look at this shit in America. It got put out. It says, "Dear members of the university community, as a next step in the University of Chicago's overall approach to artificial intelligence, the university is partnering with Anthropic to provide Claude Enterprise for all academics and staff starting in July and for all students before the fall term." Like, what are we doing? Like, truly, what are we doing with this? Like, I would think that universities would be at the vanguard or the forefront of not wanting to let AI take over. But the University of Chicago, a place that's produced notable events like a fascist coup in Chile, and also a lot of good stuff. A lot of great scholars have come out of there. They're providing Claude Enterprise for all academics and staff and all students. Like, I'm no longer an academic, but every academic I talk to, and I know there's some of you who are teachers in the chat right now, probably, every academic I talk to regularly speaks about how terrible it is to be teaching at a university in the age of AI and all the effort they have to go through to detect AI, to try to construct new assignments that are like AI proof, things of that nature. So now you're just like giving it to them. Claude Code, co-work, and code will be made available to the campus community, spanning the domains of research, education, and operations. These are powerful tools that are being made available to help individuals find ways to improve our pursuit of knowledge. Is there a library that they could go to? You also have that, or you don't have. There's no library there, so you need Claude. Okay. Access will be granted to the newest versions of Anthropic's tools for those who choose to use them, with improved integration with university resources and tools with more data protections is available with private accounts. That's fun. And I'm pretty sure that, and we can look at her account, I'm pretty sure that Sarah Osment then went on to say that, let's see. Have I mentioned that I teach first year writing there and that I'm being laid off? That's a real shot chaser situation. That's a real shot and chaser situation. So imagine you teach writing at a university and you get laid off at the same time that you find out that that university is probably paying millions of dollars to give everyone access to Claude so that Claude can write their assignments for them. That just sucks. I mean, maybe there's a way to think about this that's cooler, but I don't know what it is. Like, if anyone knows what the cool way to do that is, if like there's a way that this like actually makes sense and is good and I'm just bad, you could please let me know. I'd love to hear that, but can't really conceive of a way that this is good for anyone other than, I guess, like the university board that's making money, and in a sense it maybe sort of like launders the legitimacy of Claude or something. I don't know, man. It just sucks here. I do this. That was a quick hit. That was a quick hit around that one. I didn't have anything too crazy to say other than I wanted to look at that so we could reflect on how insane that is. And this is just like the world we live in, whether you like it or not, kids. That is the world that we currently live in. Let me check. I know I mentioned to Henry that he could come on if he wants to. Maybe Henry's going off in the chat and stuff like that. Hold on. There's like one more thing. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about. I should do a poll where I let you vote, but then that would just be so much effort. And then like someone's gonna be let down if I let you vote on what the thing we're doing is. So I'm not gonna let you vote. We talked about AI last week, so I probably don't want to go too hard in that. Let's see. That's another. Okay. Maybe we'll read this, because I have a couple of things I was looking at, but maybe this is the one that you'll like the most. It's hard to know you. You know what I mean? I feel like I know some of you, and I know what some of you like. I don't know what everyone likes. You know, you're a diverse group of interesting, smart, and attractive people. That's one thing I learned at the film screening is everyone who's a part of this community is interesting, smart, and attractive. Chuck says, "Hello, Burnsians." It's kind of fun. And I guess Katie, from looking at her response to the comments, staff, I guess you can just choose not to use it, but what are you going to do? Oh, cool. Sorry, Henry, stay out of the house. I didn't know. You were just in the chat, so I thought you might have been home. But you're not. Again, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Henry. Let's talk about this. This is something that was going around last week, and some people I know were mad about it and hated it, and I haven't read it, so we can read it together. And it kind of seems on point for some of the things we've been thinking about together collectively. This is from the Labor Politics Substack, written by Eric Blanc, which is French for Eric White. It is called "Why Is the Left No Fun?" I mean, I'm interested in this because I have a video that I'm working on that's about why like communists should be more chill and we should recognize communism is actually chill and fun and about humanity and getting out there together. Art. But yeah, I want to read this. So the subtitle, Bouncy Castle Communism is a Solution. I can't wait to hear what Bouncy Castle Communism is. I'm curious too, before we even get started into this, like, if people have thoughts in the chat, like, do you think that like the left is fun? Because I have thoughts on this. I'll share some initial thoughts on why the left is sometimes not fun. So here's one example I'll give you. I remember when I went to, I think it was like historical materialism or Marxism Today. It was like a Marxism and Socialism conference in London, I think 2008. And I went with some friends who were also Americans living in the UK studying at that point. And I just remember getting there. And at this point in my life, I don't know, like I liked to wear brightly colored button-down shirts, listen to a lot of like Grizzly Bear and Vampire Weekend and Animal Collective. I liked dancing and having fun. You go down to London for this conference, you're a 23-year-old guy, you still have a decent head of hair. The temples are receding, but you still have a decent head of hair. But I get there and like everyone at this conference, and shout out to the British leftist, they're all just wearing all black and they're just like chain smoking and angry and pale in a way. Like I'm really pale, but pale in a way that looks like sickly. I'm not sickly pale, I'm just like bog person pale. And I don't know, the whole vibe of it kind of bummed me out because I was like, we can't like have fun. No one has a good vibe. We have to be like depressed. And I was so young at that point that I kind of told myself, well, that's what it means to be, if I want to be a serious leftist, if I want to be a person who is serious about Marxism, I have to be kind of stoic and serious and wear all black. And there was times, where I would be around people of that milieu and would reference music I liked or comedy I liked, and they would be like, what, or something like that. A counter to that is, I've referenced this a lot of times, but I've really appreciated a thing that I've heard Zach Fox bring up in a few different interviews, that in what he does as a comedian and a DJ, he's trying to create a type of like fun and community with the revolutionary potential, because there's some quote he says, I'm going to get this wrong, where he's like, doesn't want to be a part of a revolution where we can't also throw ass or something like that. And I think there is something important about having a type of joy and humanity at the center of a movement that shouldn't just be about politics as such, but politics for the sake of making our world more human. The end game of socialism / communism shouldn't be to do politics all the time. The goal should be to create a society where we don't have to think about politics all the time, because we can just do human stuff all the time. I don't know if the right is fun. I don't know. Like, I'll go to a honky tonk and let you know. So this is from Eric Blanc. Why is the left no fun? Why has the U.S. right since the 1970s been more effective than the left at grassroots community organizing? I'm not like an organizer historian. I don't know. Is that true? Part of the answer is that our side has no events. What a way to start an article. So the fundamental argument seems right off the bat that the right has been more effective than the left because they have bouncy castles. We have a lot to learn from the Waldboro Republicans' recent Great American Picnic in Maine. For children, there will be a bouncy house, as well as assorted games to play. For those who want to take a whack at something, there will be a high striker available for those looking to try and ring the bell. There will also be some young rabbits available to purchase. Why can't you just pet a rabbit? Why you got to purchase? Why you got to own it? As well as a chance to win door prizes. The scarcity of similar social events on the left is a big political mistake. My first thought here is this about the left or the white? That's kind of what I wonder. Like, is this connection lost, reconnecting? Oh God, why can't I ever win? But yeah, so I do wonder. How much this is like a white thing. I think whites are kind of the most boring. It's also a relatively new problem. When activists look back at the mass working class parties of the early 20th century, it's often assumed they grew because the political economic context was more favorable. Because these parties centered workers' material needs, or because they did the ABCs of organizing we're trained in today, like one-on-one conversations and escalating campaigns. Those theories capture parts of the picture, but they overlook one thing: social events were key to recruiting and retaining working class people. Well, I wonder if this overlaps with like the whole third spacey thing as well, because historically a lot of unions and places of work and political organizations had halls where like people would hang and kids could hang out and there'd be events and potlucks and karaoke night and shit like that. Those theories capture parts of the picture, but they overlook one thing: social events were key. Fun, community building social activities weren't an afterthought to real politics, but a central mechanism for organizational growth. I mean, I believe that is true. I think that like community building things, fun things, cultural events are things that reinforce and build out our humanity, which I think is an important part of why we want to make political change in the first place. Working people joined and stayed in the old U.S. Socialist Party via picnics, choirs, volunteer orchestras, Sunday schools, weekend campouts, and baseball leagues. 100 years before mega churches and Turning Point USA insisted on the same points, American Socialist in a typical 1913 article stressed that you can't recruit most people to a boring movement. I think I'll just say this right now as I'm kind of riffing off this. I think the church of it all means a lot. Oh, is Wizworld in the house? Shout out. Or I just saw someone say Wizworld is forever. Let's see. So I think one of the big things here is the church of it all. I think that when we look at the right in America, so much of it is tied into the evangelical ecosystem. And a huge part of evangelicalism in that world is not only giving you a sense of like theological and social purpose, but building in a type of sociality. Like those motherfuckers have bounce houses all day. People go to churches because they know they're places where they can like fall in love, and there's singles groups, and you join the Bible study, and the Bible studies are different cliques and all this sort of stuff. I think that Turning Point USA is an organization that was started by a fallen soldier of Christ, carried on a lot of that same stuff. So we can start over now. So I think, wait, is Henry here? Let me finish talking about this article, Henry, and then pop on. If that's what you're saying. Are you in the chat as well? Yeah. Do you have the link? Hop on. I'm going to finish talking about this article and then hop on if you're cool with that. I'll try to be quick. So this is from the 1913 article. It says, how do people talk in the 1930s? Few young people will come to a dry business meeting. Does that mean no alcohol? It's difficult to get older people out. Very few more will attend a lecture or similar fare. Other methods must first be used to interest them in the work of the movement. They must be reached by interesting them in something which they can naturally delight. Every young heart, this is nice. Every young heart wants the joy that comes from an evening of merriment. A dance, a party, an entertainment. Young folks like to gather at places where they can meet their associates. Churches have long served this purpose, many of them depending upon this desire for association, for their very existence. Yeah, the church thing is real. Called it. I think that's nice. These organizers understood that the feeling and culture of a movement mattered just as much as its program. Here's how a 1913 piece, Sociability and Socialism, described the importance of reaching out warmly to newcomers. It is the little things which people notice most in life. Grasping a person by the hand and speaking a friendly word may seem a small thing, but it may be the means of bringing a person into the socialist movement who may prove an exceedingly valuable worker. As the Young People's Socialist League of Rochester says, shout out to Rochester. Is that where you are, Sean? Let us put social in socialism. Now, there's something very like churchy about that as well, in that if you go to like a cool evangelical church, the church is going to have someone who like comes up like, hey, how are you? Have you been here before? Blah, blah. Like there's like this warmth, this humanity, this like come be a part of the thing. And I don't know. I think like sometimes I'm the one who said earlier in this very show that I think that maybe political organizing should be about friendship. Maybe this contradicts that. But a lot of political spaces or organizing spaces can be kind of like cold and cliquish. Sports and physical fitness activities were another pivotal way to make socialism more social. When asked what work young socialists could do, they could do baseball, run excursions, take walks, distributing literature on the way. Crucially, these events were open to anybody, not just socialists or the feuding factions. An advertisement poster for a week-long Mammoth 10th Annual Socialist Encampment. That sounds like where Stephen Miller is gonna put some of us soon. During the summer of 1930, concluded Grand Salient is the place. August 18th to 23rd, the dates. Everyone's invited. Tell everyone, come join the Mammoth Merry Throng and have your part of the fun. That sounds like I'm gonna get murdered there. But these guys look sick as hell. Look at these guys. They look like they're having a pretty fucking fun time, if you know what I mean. They look like they're having a pretty fun time over there. Wow. I think that's Mumford and Sons. I think that's Mumford and Sons. These events had plenty of political speakers, but what attracted people was community and fun for the whole family. This is where I've become more of a cop recently. I think the family thing is important. I think it's important to have political events where family can be involved. One socialist instruction manual from that year stressed the importance of preparing lemonade stands, hamburger stands, doll racks, pounding machines, merry-go-rounds show. Socialist agitator Oscar Ameringer recalls that the whole morning of the first day of camp in Oklahoma was dedicated to a singing school where a mixed chorus was organized and rehearsed in socialist songs, usually of populist origin, sung to familiar melodies. And after a full day of camaraderie, music, and politics, discussions around the glowing campfire continued on into the small hours. I mean, the thing I do, and I'm curious, so people with kids or people that are kids, if you're 8 and you're just on your parents' account and you're watching this and you're like, I don't know what any of these words mean, maybe this will help. 8-year-old. No, I'm just kidding. That'll be terrifying. But I think like I didn't learn about socialist politics until I was in my late teens, early adulthood. And it seems important to me to like raise kids in an environment where just if you raise someone around, like it's important for me to expose my daughter to music and art and nature and other stuff. Like you want to have someone be a part of that sort of political community as early as possible. The shortest road to the socialist understanding of the majority is via brass band and vaudeville. I mean, again, this is why I do think a thing I will argue is it's important for leftists to make art and make good art. Having an in-person recreational space was no less crucial in the cities. Los Angeles. I've been there. Los Angeles socialism resurgence was credited partly to the new social dynamism it created after fixing up a decrepit downtown building and turning it into a headquarters or social club. I do think it'd be cool if like socialist organizations had like clubs and bars. You could just go like hang there. Half the space was dedicated to the dance hall with the rest put towards dance hall. This is the Zach Fox thing. You got to be able to throw ass. Pool and billiards can be played at any time. Yada yada yada. Across the whole country, music was the organizer's universal hook. Shout out Woody Guthrie. Maringer recalls that after initially struggling one day to catch the attention of working class passerbys, he pulled out his old clarinet. He said, I found myself on a soapbox dispersing such classics as Turkey in the Straw, Arkansas Traveler, and Everybody Works But Father. Gradually an audience assembled. A few white men, some nope, 2 or 3, okay, and a respectable number of mongrel dogs thirsting for knowledge and water. I hope that's talking about real dogs. By sandwiching my discourse between slices of melody, I built the crowd. Like all mass movements, these were singing movements. Socialist songs, important. Yep. I'm just going to kind of like scroll around here. I will link this article, by the way, so you can, I'll do that now so don't forget. You can read the whole thing for yourself. Oh, yeah. All Power Books. I've heard about that, Jeff. That sounds like a very cool place. That's here, right? That's here in Los Angeles, California. Sorry. I'm just like looking at the chat now. I wasn't looking, and now I'm distracted. And sorry to scare anyone. Sorry to scare. Okay. Encampment, sports leagues, dances. There's people hanging out. They are kind of all white. Eugene Debs. He's an important guy. Saw that Socialist Socials had a healing property. I mean, I think like this is the thing about religion sometimes that we might not want to admit that we like, even if we like it, or if we don't want to admit that we like it, is the level of human sociality. Like reading the Pope's encyclical on AI, so much of what he says has to do with how like being human and being in community is a fundamental part, like what we're supposed to be doing, and all this technology shit that makes us isolated, dehumanized, and not in community is bad. So compared to this vibrant legacy, compared to right-wing events today, I'm also curious about, has anyone been to right-wing events today? They don't seem like they're that cool. The culture of our contemporary left is anemic. Okay. It's anemic. But those exceptions prove the rule until we can make room for a little more fun, more full of song, more welcoming for working families. Will likely, that key didn't work, continue to primarily recruit self-selecting activists from college-educated backgrounds, many of whom are more comfortable posting online than inviting neighbors to a barbecue. That's real. That is a real thing. I think a lot of us are probably way more comfortable posting hyperbolic things online than we are talking to a stranger and being like, you want to come to my house and eat food that I grill for you? Potlucks and karaoke nights might seem like a distraction in the face of the world's horrors, but they're not. I agree with that. To grow big and deep enough to win, we need to provide the joyful community most people lack in our lonely, phone-addicted era. In our lonely, phone-addicted era. In our lonely, phone-addicted era. We need to provide the joyful community. Most people lack in our lonely, phone-addicted. As long as the left seeds that ground, the right will keep filling it. My only issue is I just don't know if the right's doing that. If Debs were alive today, he'd be the first to put his $5 in the hat to run a bounty castle for our next event. I mean, okay, here's what I think is good about that. I don't know if I'm like completely on board that this is the thing that the right is just crushing at and we're bad at. Although I do think like right-wing people are sometimes more, there's more like hanging culture. That makes sense. But yeah, I do think that's absolutely clutch. And I think you guys hear me talk about community all the time. I just think like community of all sorts is really necessary and really helpful. And I think that in terms of, like I've talked before about how I got tricked into being evangelical when I was a teen. And one of the ways that I got tricked into evangelicalism was like fun events, like getting invited to a youth group thing where they had a cool band and free pizza. And there was like cool people there and like girls I wanted to have crushes on. I was so insecure I couldn't even have crushes. I wanted to have crushes, but I felt like I didn't deserve to have crushes on them, so I couldn't even do that. But in those spaces, there was like a sociality, there was an attractiveness to the thing, there was a community I wanted to be a part of, and of course, that led to a youth pastor taking me upstairs in someone's house. That sounds dark. That sounded. Sorry, I'm annoying the hell out of people. Maybe I'll do more effects for the show. But a youth pastor took me upstairs and was like, if you got in a car accident on the way home tonight, would you go to heaven or hell? And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't want to go to hell. That sounds terrible. But I think the point is that if you're looking at conversion, like when I got convinced to go to the evangelical church, it was because a friend from school invited me to some fun events. It wasn't because he yelled at me about like theological doctrine or something. And I think in some ways, there is a almost conversion or like evangelical aspect to creating human and social feeling leftist spaces where people aren't just invited to like think the right ideas, but they're invited to be a part of like a community. They're being invited to like live together. Live together is weird because that sounds like I'm talking about a cult. Yeah, maybe like just a softer reverb. No, that's a little intense. That's a little intense. Sorry. What's this one do? What's this effect? What's that do? That's nothing. That's nothing. That's a little bit weird. And that's a little bit weird. So I think like, you know, I think there's a truth to it. I'll just say that. I think there's a truth to it. I don't know if it's like bounty houses or bounty castles being the thing that we need, but I think in general, I agree with that. And I will say, I feel like my friend Ray Huang, who is running for mayor here in Los Angeles, the ballots aren't in. Something crazy could still happen. Who knows? If Christ walked on water, Ray could still be mayor. But I had events for her campaign that were like community oriented, where kids were invited. There was comedy stuff, there was film stuff. Shout out to the homie Mary Houlihan because we did a comedy event with her. Let's see. And someone said, I think if anything around here, protests are too much like a hangout and too little direct action. And maybe that's the point, right? Maybe the point is that if we had hangouts that were the sort of like social component of the whole thing, that then it'd be a little bit easier to like then when we do the protest, just do the protest. Because I think that's sometimes like the only thing. And sometimes you end up treating the protest like you're like tailgating or something like that. Guys, I'm gonna bring on Henry now, whose birthday is today. Hold on. Oh no.
Whoa, hello.
Hold-
What are you doing?
Are you there?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear
Hold
me?
on.
Can chat hear me?
You're a little bit
see
chunky.
me. A little bit what?
Happy birthday to you. No, you're coming in real clunky for me. Can you hear me and stuff?
Yeah, I hear you quite clearly.
Weird. I guess maybe it's on my end. Let me check how my internet's doing right now. There's like a time of the day where it sometimes gets bad, which is really cool and really inconvenient.
What up, a ghost bro? Good to see you over here. You're simultaneously on Twitch as well, huh?
Oh yeah.
You're doing tech.
I see what's happening right now.
While Michael's doing tech, I'm just going to give a quick shout out. If
My
you go
internet
on
got crazy.
YouTube and go to the Technopoverty channel or twitch.tv Technopoverty, follow me in both places. We've just wrapped up talking a whole unit on war. We read All Quiet on the Western Front and bookended it with some Frederick Jameson.
Well, I'm going to try something. Hold on.
Also, at the suggestion of Mr. Burns here.
Oh no. Maybe it's just Henry's stream now. Oh no, I hate my fucking life, man.
All right, chat. I'm going to tell you why everything Burns is going through back there is just completely wrong. Can you hear me, by the way, Burns? Oh no, I think he's frozen. What's going on? I do look much more mature, eh? I don't even know if this stream's still going. Yeah, Chuck, I had never seen any adaptation. I was completely unfamiliar with All Quiet, but I wanted to follow up Paths of Glory with something. And that 1930s version, notably made pre-code, so pre-code Hollywood, it was able to get away with some, anti-nationalist, anti-war sentiments that maybe mid-century Hollywood movies won't be able to touch as much. Shockingly energetic and active compared to the 2022 version. It's amazing that they remade it in 2022 and, I don't know, botched it so hard. Michael, are you there?
I think I'm now here, and I think I can now see. What a cool! I like your shirt a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a Zelda hoodie. It's just something I threw on. To get back on topic,
yeah,
though,
I think
we were talking about how fun
the
left is, or how fun the left isn't, from what I understand.
Well, yeah, that article is saying that the left isn't fun enough,
Michael,
and that other people are more fun.
I feel I've been living with since at least 15 years old, being around liberal elder adults who just vocally state that the United States is a dying empire and there's nothing to do about it. And they've been doing that since the Bush era, all the way through to
Yeah, it's not
today.
very fun.
Yeah, and I don't know, the people who are having the worst time to me right now are the crackpot like centrists, the pragmatic realists who think there's nothing that can be done because like within the meritocracy it seems that things are gunked up, or I don't know, there's a whole magical blockade on their mind. But I think that's much more frustrating than, I don't know, the buzzkilliness, the alleged buzzkilliness of the left.
No,
um
I agree with that. I mean, I think like yes, I think, and this kind of gets into the thing I like talking about too much sometimes, which is like the notion of like political imagination, because I
yeah,
think
what do
some
these
yeah
people conceive doing politics as? Because I mean, in participating in the local DSA and like working with other stuff friends there are doing elsewhere, like I see people doing plays, putting on wrestling shows,
yeah
music events, just stuff like that. That doesn't really get reported online, but I don't know. I don't agree with the thesis that the left's a buzzkill. I think people are searching for perhaps a commodity solution that they can purchase from home that will alleviate a stress they're feeling because they're stuck in a different mental heuristic. And the
yeah.
actual work of politics is changing and reframing that mental heuristic so you're not such a doomer.
No, I get that, and I do think like, well, I think it's also important that the guy who wrote that, I don't know a lot about him. I know he's a big like DSA guy, so I do wonder if that's maybe less about the left and more about the DSA left, or like the white left,
Yes.
because I've been around some spaces in my day that are leftist spaces that I would say are more like Black or Latino in their communal or leadership orientation, that I find more fun than some of the white spaces, especially some of like the white college educated vibe spaces.
Also, having been out, like, knocking on doors and stuff, I feel like there are annoying leftists. I'm not going to say it's a complete mess. I feel that it takes a few more degrees of digging and participation to encounter the dude on the phone from one bow after the other. Whereas,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, right wing cranks, I walk in, I see those in my day to day life. That might just be me in Texas, but like I rarely see someone getting persecuted over pronouns or whatever. Imagine like left
Mm-hmm.
wing boogeymen are out there. I will see give war a chance bumper stickers and like my pronouns are fuck you hats. Uh,
That's
uh,
wild.
they don't seem very happy, is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
compared to like the more proactive lefties I know. So maybe maybe I'm just rooted in such a way offline to where I'm not driven insane by what's online.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I guess I think too, like, I don't know. I think maybe some people associate the left with a certain like seriousness as well.
Mhm.
Where like if every, and I don't mean this in a glib way, where if like every event is a fundraiser for kids in Gaza, it's sort of like the whole vibe is predetermined by like the notion of genocide or the carceral state or all this sort of stuff that I think is maybe a reason people think of the left is not fun. Um, in that like the stuff the left sometimes cares about is dark. But this is also why I think, one of my like things recently has been, that's why one of the failures of like the leftist imagination is to clearly articulate what it's all for. Because the left
Yes.
is good at articulating what it's like against, but not as much of what like the end goal of this all is.
Yes. So last techno
I don't
poverty
know.
session, we read through Frederick Jameson's cognitive mapping. It's kind of a bookend on this huge segment we've
Hell
been
yeah.
doing on war. And while you were doing tech stuff, I talked a bit in the chat with it, but we watched as part of that whole block the 1930s All Quiet on the Western Front movie and the 2022 All Quiet on the Western Front movie. And we also read the book. The the political imagination stuff you're talking about, this is kind of like what Jameson's getting at with cognitive mapping, is like how do we articulate and understand the totality of things when it's all controlled by capital, and like how do we, like, as we're talking about mental heuristics and reframing things, like how through aesthetics do you reach that? And I think that's, I don't know, at least part of what's been going with the techno poverty project for me is like how do we, through using historical art, contemporary art, looking at the past and present and kind of linking things through the future, see what's kind of consistent and what gets missed, not talked about, how we can feel more reassured by things in the past, as far as like ground that's been tread to get rid of, as Jameson calls it, like postmodern schizophrenia, like the sense that everything's new and novel because like the sense of history is obscured. I don't know. I think when it gets to like what's it all for, it's like, well, to not go insane. And I think maybe because my
I heard a
foundation
little bit
is
of what you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, I think maybe because my foundation is, well, like, I look at like, on the ground, like, what can I do? Who can I interact with in a leftist manner? Like, what leftist organizations around here? I think of why I originally found Austin DSA, and it's because like locally there was a lot of shit going down on the ballot with the cops that I didn't like going down, and like they were able to, meet those elections, get those things overturned. I don't know. I just, when I hear that leftists are buzzkills, I feel like the reason people are more and more going towards leftism now is because they're looking for pragmatic ways to do things that aren't going player 2 in Super Mario Brothers. They're like, the reason, for instance, the correspondence dinner guy, I feel, was like such a centristy mix of things, is because he's still within a mode of American participation that, like, if you can't vote him out, you go John Wayne. And I think that sort of is the reason you need to. I'm sorry. I'm going off on like the purpose of art and history here when I'm trying to circle back around to leftism. And Michael, you there? Stuffy squares
I don't
over
know.
what
I should
normies
probably
call
go.
the
'Cause I
left.
think my
Sorry, I'm
internet's
looking at the
crapping
chat.
out.
Okay.
Man, you need to come on
What
early next
I'm
time. This
saying
is
though
no,
is like,
I'm
oh, sorry. I was just saying, like,
no go
leftism
go
as
ahead
a
while
theory
you're
kind
there.
of alleviates maybe the pressure, the frustration, the doomerism that I don't really see coming from the left. But it is a bit of a buzzkill telling someone like,
Yeah.
hey, the things you're thinking, like,
Oh my God, did it kick me off again? I hate my life. I hate my life. Am I there now? Here's
we're
here's
here. I don't see the chat anymore.
Okay, they'll come back. Here's the real question, guys. If anyone can tell me this, I'm doing a speed test right now. Why is it that my office Wi-Fi in the middle of the day, all of a sudden, my download speed is 8 megabytes per second and my upload speed is 60? Why does this happen? It was so good earlier today, guys.
You
I keep trying to get them to
share.
fix it. I do, but is that it? That like in the morning when I was here earlier, less people were doing stuff, and now there's more people doing stuff?
It depends on how the building's wired, but it could be.
Okay. While you're here, well, I want to say one thing. I did link guys to Mary Houlihan's video, which I want everyone to watch, where she goes to this is really fun leftist time, a sort of concentration camp in the desert, but actually has fun with it. I mean that in a real way. I think Mary does a great job with stuff. While we're both here before the show ends, Henry, anything else you want to pitch or talk about while you're here? And I'll have you on again soon. We'll do it earlier when the internet works.
Yeah, your suggestion, I edited this video a long time ago, but I finally got through it in my stack. I'm going to read Kierkegaard's The Present Age. That's the next book we're doing on techno-poverty. We just wrapped up our big spring block, which was all about war in various aspects. We're playing a lot of war games, talking about a lot of war fiction. Summer's starting, and summer's going to be a lot looser if people want a jumping on point for techno-poverty. The only real goal is every book this summer is going to be under 200 pages or a short story. So I'm looking to kind of knock a bunch of things out this summer. And I'm going to be playing through some recent releases. I've been playing a lot of like old games and maybe not so old, but still not new games as part of the more like humanities focused blocks I've been doing. Summer's going to be a time to kind of get less focused with the program, but still locked in on the books. Probably going to be playing Resident Evil 9 and Silksong this summer, as well as a few other indie games. And I'm going to continue talking about the Jameson thing because I feel with the focus on contemporary indie games, I'm going to be talking a lot about just there's a bit right at the end of cognitive mapping where Jameson talks about why cognitive mapping is an issue of aesthetics and not social science. And I kind of want to dig into that more as I go through this summer. And I think there's something there as to why I tend to lock in more on narrative and historical fiction than like theory books, which also I think makes a good contrast with you and Lux, who are way more locked in on the theory side.
No, theory sucks. You're right. Well, I do. And just in case, guys, if you don't already, I'm sure you all do. If you don't subscribe to Techno Poverty already, please do. If nothing else, for a birthday present for Henry. Doing lots of cool stuff. That all sounds really fun. It's I feel like it's a blessing that right now I can see you and hear you. They're still supposed to fix my internet more, so hopefully we can do this more. But have a great birthday, man.
Thank you. I will. I'm gonna chill, maybe get a nice pizza and watch a movie with some friends this evening.
That sounds amazing.
Also, Katie,
amazing.
yeah, I do want to play Mina the Hollower. That's maybe, depending on Resident Evil 9, Silk Song, those are two definites. There's a game called Pipistrello that's like an indie adventure game I want to get to. It seems really really passionate. It's in the similar vein to Mina the Hollower, but yeah, there's so much nice stuff out there right now. We're gonna have fun this summer, guys.
Hell yeah. Well, Henry, thanks for coming on. Happy birthday. Shout out Techno Poverty. Thanks to everyone that hung out for this stream. We'll see you soon. I'll hopefully have a better technology situation sooner rather than later. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. So everyone have a great day. And if you are like a leftist, like be fun, you know, just do something fun. Let yourself have a little fun, even if it's just letting yourself have fun. You're allowed to have fun. Fun is infectious. Be fun. Cool. There we go. Okay. Later, guys. Later, Henry. Later, everyone.
I will close this first set, and then Talking Heads will be back, and we'll be back about 1 o'clock.